We on?
On a Monday. Excellent.
I think I hear Dr. Clothier getting on.
It's the doctor.
Well, I haven't said anything yet.
I haven't said anything yet.
We're about to do the intro and then we'll bring in.
Okay, very good.
Live from Venturix Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
Hey, good morning to the crew. It is Monday.
Happy Monday.
You know, I still think we should get like the rights to just another Manic Monday.
Yeah, but then Manic Monday
Doo-doo-doo.
kind of, even though that's a great song, hashtag the Bengals.
Oh, did you just hashtag the Bengals?
Sure, why not?
At the Bengals.
Oh, is that cooler?
Ooh, that's the new.
The Bengals.
Now you just woke.
No.
You're woke.
I'm extra.
You're always extra, but you just woke. I'll tell you what's extra is we got Dr. Norm Clothier joining us this morning. We're going to talk about
He's like, oh, great way to introduce me.
right,
Thanks, kids.
25 million people infected.
Closest I've been associated with the Bengals, but they're not going to the Super Bowl this year.
They are not. And since Dr. Clothier has segued us into the second part of the show, we're going to be talking about, of course, the two games this Sunday, or this last Sunday.
Yeah, yesterday's games. Holy Toledo, Batman.
Teflon Tom.
I'm telling you, yeah,
Or
we'll be talking
Timeless Tom. All kinds of names can come out of that game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Green Bay Packers.
Heck yes.
And we may kick the FBI around a little bit today.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh, I do.
Don't
They're
come
talking
and
Did
get
I,
us.
did I hang up now?
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to be a part of that.
Well, when you're talking about not charging people with crimes, and you've called them crimes, and then how on earth do you charge our president?
Yeah, then
So,
how do you
I may
impeach
kick
the president if
FBI
now
around
you're
a
saying
little
there's no crimes? I'm like,
I may be
what?
kicking the FBI around a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But before
We're
I do
gonna
that,
kicking
let's get
discussions.
Dr. Clothier off so he doesn't make any lists and let him get on with his day. But no, Dr. Clothier, we have now hit 25 million infected. Mexico also showing their highest numbers ever, including their president is sick as well, just to the south of us. I mean, where are we going? And then, a lot of folks have gotten that first round of vaccinations. How do you get the second round, and when do you get the second round?
Sure. There's always a lot to cover on COVID. We've spent 10 months, I think, covering nearly exclusively COVID. There are other medical things in this world, but, obviously this occupies everybody's time and attention, especially when the leader of a country gets it. I think that's, somewhat more noticeable. Obviously, we've had members of Congress, we've had our former president had it, and
First Lady.
those are big deals. And,
Yes.
And everybody is obviously important in that. I would much rather not have it myself, for instance. So I think we need to be as realistic as possible about the numbers. And one is that there are 99 million people in the world with documented infection at this point. We're, basically 14 months into the definition of COVID-19, the identification and genotyping of the virus. So, roughly a year, if we said that it's been, in fact, the first case in the United States is documented, and I know people want to debate that, and that's fair. There have been blood samples showing earlier infection and such, but the first documented case was a year ago this weekend. So in the year, we have now 400,000 deaths in America. And that's, to put that in perspective, most years, the typical flu year will have 40,000 deaths from the flu. The 400,000 obviously is 10 times as many. And I think that's got to be acknowledged. And whether people want to claim, a mask is a government intrusion, or the testing, they heard of somebody who heard of somebody who heard of somebody who heard of somebody that didn't have a test done, but they were told they were positive. All those things, there still are 400,000 deaths that either you believe are from COVID, because that's true, or they're dead from something. And that would still be a concern, I would think, even to people who don't think that COVID-19 exists or is infectious viewpoints or whatever those viewpoints are. So I think it's probably time to get really past the conspiratorial side and look at the numbers and realize with 400,000 dead Americans, and that has reduced our life expectancy in America by a year already in terms of looking at the numbers. That's a lot of missed time with family, with the life as you had in mind. And, these are significant things. So I wanted to put in perspective too. JP mentioned 25 million in America now, and there are 99 million worldwide. Now that would put us at virtually 25% in America.
And is that Dr. Clothier? Is that like, so that's people, including the 400,000 in America who have passed, and those who have had it, or just those who were impacted by it, had it?
Yes, the infection number includes the dead as well as the living.
Okay, gotcha.
So if you were infected and died, you're still considered to be infected.
Okay.
So that 25 million includes the 400,000 who have died.
Okay.
So if you look at that works out to be somewhere around 1.5%. I believe I was going right the numbers this morning. I can't think of it in my head right now for sure, but it was holding pretty steady at 0.4 to 0.8% in most communities. It's now crept up over the 1% mark. So of death rate. And part of that is, early on, we didn't understand how much of a repercussion there'd be to having the infection. There are a lot of people debilitated by the infection who don't die necessarily from the infection directly, but die of heart disease shortly thereafter, blood clots,
right,
kidney failure, a number of complicating issues that we don't fully understand yet, why someone would have a complication and why someone else really doesn't.
Well, and
you've heard of
I've got a friend, Dr. Clothier,
and things like that.
That is a CEO of a company, and he said that his time with COVID was okay. It was the aftermath and how it's impacting his asthma now is worse than what it was during COVID.
I think that's a very significant factor, and one that which a lot of people look at numbers, you don't see the complications. And I think that's, part of the challenge too, is realizing 400,000 are dead. You can say, that's less than 2%. That's a very low rate of death. Well, that's probably all well and fine unless you have one of those family members who's died, or your CEO of your company who's died, or the business owner who's died and therefore your job's gone, or, your close friend who's died. And then what we don't see in that number is the complicating factors that are pretty debilitating to people. I see a number of people who are able to go back to work after their specified time of symptom-free, no fever and all that, and they're fine. See other people who have been dragging on, for a while, for weeks, even into months. And I think that's a very real challenge. So looking back at the numbers, though, if you think about 25 million of 99 million in the world or in the United States, that sounds like we're doing things very poorly. And that is, I think, inaccurate. If you look at the rates, for instance, of death in India, it's India has 4 times as many people as the United States, and yet the number of deaths is lower. So I'd say it's a factor of about an eighth of the number of deaths in America. Now, in America, we have these things called death certificates, and we have, tracking whether for good or bad of people. We know whether people have been in the hospital, whether they've died, because those things get documented. We register births, we register deaths, and we have a system where we can tell who's been infected, who has died, etc. In India, that is true in cities. It's not true in the vast majority of the less populated areas, or they're very populated, but the less organized areas, I guess, would be the most fair term. Looking at North Korea, for instance, as an alternative, there have been 0 cases in North Korea. Now, that is obviously, I think, because they haven't reported cases.
Exactly.
North Korea has been shown to be on the market for the vaccine like crazy. They're offering extremely high payment to get the vaccine. Why would you be desperate to get the vaccine if you have 0 cases? So I think when we look at the numbers, America discloses numbers, and that's a big difference compared to, either countries like India that cannot calculate the numbers or track them, and then places like North Korea that just don't disclose them.
Right. Well, yeah, and again, North Korea. Yeah, I'm going to reiterate. They're kind of controlled, and propaganda are us. So it's just
Oh, absolutely.
there's no
the
way
most
that they
controlled.
don't have
Yeah.
cases of COVID. I mean, yeah, there's just no way.
Oh, absolutely. It just cannot be true.
No.
So, and then, of course, the cases in China, and I don't want to get tracked down by anybody for saying this, but they've had, they've had an extraordinarily low rate of infection ever since the pandemic began. And, they make that claim. For those who, really follow this thing more closely, I think it's very apparent there are a lot more infections than they're disclosing. And so, those, of course, are communist nations with controlled
Yes.
information streams. They have limited, if any, internet. And, I think before people condemn the United States for it's such a horrible job of taking care of the virus, I think it needs to be realized that we're just more open about it than other countries around the world. There also are a number, if you look at the numbers in many countries, say in the Southern Hemisphere in general, there's a lot of debate about that because the numbers look really low, but yet there's very limited testing, very limited opportunity at hospitalization. You can't track the numbers in ICUs around the world in countries that don't have ICU care, for instance. So I would say the worldwide numbers are far higher than 99 million. And I think the U.S. does not account for a fourth of the cases worldwide. But I also think that we have 25 million cases and need to be realistic about that. That's going to be about 8% of the population. And that's
Wow.
a pretty considerable number of people, obviously.
So, Dr. Clothier, we've got a question in from the crew. How many are post-infection and no longer have it? Out of the 25 million.
In terms of fully recovered, I'd say that's
Right.
very hard to come up with a number because we don't really have a great definition of fully recovered because of things like you were mentioning, like the individual with ongoing asthma symptoms, people with needed surveillance on their heart or their prior blood clot or their kidney function, for instance. So I would estimate, and this is a rough estimate, that somewhere around 3 to 5 million people have lingering symptoms. So you could say about 20 million have recovered, and then 400,000 have died, but somewhere around 3 to 5 million are still encountering the medical system enough to, because they have lingering symptoms and ongoing medical challenges. There could still be some of those who die, from blood clot, heart disease, whatever, that it's been accelerated by COVID during this time, and may or may not ever show up as a COVID statistic. But I can tell you their health is obviously affected by it. So getting to the immunization, I wanted to be sure. I know we had some questions about intervals and the vaccine.
Yes.
I would suggest every person who can get the vaccine should get the vaccine. And I know that sounds radical to some people, but I think the odds of infection at this point, when you have 8% of Americans infected and you have a large number of people debilitated and a large number who have died, I think the risk of having soreness in your arm for a day or two is markedly less risky than the risk of getting the infection and seeing what happens. And I had the immunization. I had no symptoms whatsoever. Easiest thing I've gone through. I mean, it was simple, extremely simple. And I realize that's probably, on the upper end of the spectrum of, lack of symptoms. And some people certainly have more symptoms. But the general risk is soreness for a day or two. I know many people don't want to get shingles and they get Shingrix vaccine. I can tell you Shingrix vaccine causes a lot more arm ache than the COVID vaccines. And, I think you just have to put that in perspective, too. You're not going to die from shingles. You may be miserable, but there aren't going to be 400,000 deaths in the next year from shingles.
Right.
So, I think we also have to be realistic about that. But if you get the Pfizer vaccine, the interval is 21 days, or, well, really 19 to 23 days after the first shot, you should get the second shot. And I'm putting a hold on for a second on that because I'm going to give more information on that here in a moment. And then the Moderna vaccine is a 4-week interval, and the range there is close to 4 weeks. Actually, hasn't been as carefully defined as the 19 to 23 days with the Pfizer vaccine. So both of the currently available ones are a 2-shot series, 3 or 4 weeks apart. However, the CDC late last week quietly came out with the comment that, it's probably fine to get it anytime you can get a second one after the 19 days on the Pfizer vaccine and after 25 days on the Moderna vaccine. So if it's 6 weeks, if you miss your 3 week because there isn't one available or whatever, you still should get it whenever you can get it. Some people, like myself, for instance, when I had the shot, I had the Pfizer vaccine, I was put into a study system to monitor symptoms. And
Oh, that's
for
right.
that study, that one,
No, I said that's right. Yeah, I forgot you're in a study currently.
yes.
Right.
And so I'm getting texts, basically daily, and they've actually switched recently to weekly to see if I have any symptoms, where I text back to them and tell them, how I'm feeling, whatever. So for me, it was important to get it at that 21 days if possible, which I was able to, because they want to study a group that has, been able to be followed in a fairly concise set of parameters. But if you've gotten the Pfizer vaccine and it's now been 5 weeks and one comes up available, or you can sign up somewhere and get it, go ahead and get the second one. Don't blow it off because you missed your 23 days.
Okay.
So then when we get other ones, they're approved, and I thought another one would be approved by now. It hasn't been, so it's been a little bit slower to get approved. The Johnson & Johnson one is talked about as being one vaccine. They're also now talking about possibly being a second one at 6 months. I'm assuming that's what the delay is right now, is trying to define the interval.
Okay.
So don't be surprised if, most every shot too is more than one shot series. So don't be intimidated by that. The shingles shot I mentioned earlier, so it's a series of 2. The recommendation for a pneumonia shot is twice. The recommendation on tetanus is every 7 to 10 years. Pertussis, whooping cough, is every 7 years. And, the polio shot, you get a series of 4 to begin.
Right.
When you start out, as a young child getting the polio vaccine. So there's nothing really odd about more than one vaccine. And I've heard a lot of criticism of people saying, oh, well, this must not be much of a vaccine if they're playing, if you need 2 of them. Well, that's, it's not true. I mean, it's
right.
It's kind of like treating, if you treat blood pressure, take one pill and done.
Exactly.
I think you got to realize there's a series because time goes on.
Right.
So, Dr. Clothier, we have a few more questions that have come in.
Okay.
One of them is, and it kind of goes along with the lines of the other question I asked you, but do we know how many people are currently infected with COVID-19? We see those daily numbers pop up, but do we know how many are currently infected? And then I've got another question after that.
No, that's a great question. And, again, the problem is if you get positive tests and have evidence of infection, not everyone gets, followed in terms of getting the negative test. It's a manpower issue. The reason we have some challenging statistics to try to gather is that they're to try to do tracking and tracing of people's contacts, other testing, follow-up testing. It's a very challenging thing to keep up with all that. We just haven't had enough people in the health department system, the public health system, to be able to do so. And then, of course, there are people who clinically have the infection. They have fever, they've lost their sense of taste and smell, they have body aches, but for whatever reason, they haven't tested. I have a relatively high number of patients who call in and say, well, I'm sure I have COVID. I've got, all the symptoms, need time off work, whatever. And I'll ask when their test was. I'll say, oh, I'm not getting the test. And, that's obviously part of our freedom in America, which we have too, is you can opt not to get a test. So it's very hard to put a finger on that. Now, if you divide out, or if you look at the number of active cases since Christmas, for instance, it's gone up considerably since then. And so of the 25 million, somewhere around 5 million have been diagnosed over the last 4 weeks. Trying to find that number right now. Let's see. It looks like since the 29th of December, we have somewhere close to 20% of all cases. So I would say currently we probably have somewhere around 5 million infected Americans presently. But I don't think anybody knows that number for sure.
Gotcha. And then our next question, who's working on a multivariant vaccine that covers new strains?
Well, at the moment, I don't know the specifics on that. A number of companies are working on furthering the vaccine, including Pfizer and Moderna are looking at whether they need to make some degree of a change in the vaccine. As we discussed last week, viruses always mutate. And I don't find it surprising there are different strains being identified, in part because we've only had testing for any strain for about a year. And so as we get better at testing and gain more specifics there, we'll know there are more strains than what we originally thought. But that's a normal finding with viruses. Viruses always mutate. They enter into humans. They alter themselves a bit because people are different in their RNA, the cells that the virus uses to replicate. And then when it spreads someone else, that gets a little different mix. That's why, as we discussed again last week, we've never had a cure for the common cold because there are so many viral strains. There are hundreds of mutations. That doesn't necessarily mean one cold is a whole lot worse than another. And the challenge, a lot of colds are coronaviruses. With this coronavirus, it's a novel coronavirus we haven't seen in the human population before, so we haven't formed much of any immune response to it. So when we get some degree of vaccination, which obviously is underway now, and it acts against a protein particle in the virus that is meant to be a stable protein particle, the best anybody could estimate, so that the virus should be, or the immune response of the body from the vaccine should be able to handle most any viral strain or mutation that there is with the virus. So if you have immunity to the particle that is most stable in the virus, then it should be carried across the many mutations that we're seeing.
Gotcha. Another question came in from the crew. What is the incubation period again? I know you've talked about this before, but I think these are things we need to keep in mind as we go out there, especially if we're exposed to a big crowd.
The generally agreed upon observation and study of that, of the virus, is that it's about 3 to 7 days, and 5 days being the absolute median and mean. So, in other words, if you've been exposed on Monday, in theory, you should know whether you have the infection or not by Saturday. Given 5 full 24-hour periods. The 3 to 7 day is a challenge because there's obviously a range. And again, that's normal with viruses. I think we've all had the experience where somebody in a family gets a cold and then somebody else gets it a day later, somebody else 3 days later, and somebody else a week later, But it is thought to be. So, in other words, if I last night had 10 people come over with COVID and break into my house and breathe on me, if I went and did a test this morning, it'd be too soon.
Right.
So, part of the testing is also needs to be practical. And if I didn't have any symptoms, if I wanted to be fairly confident I hadn't been infected by that group, I would need to wait somewhere around 3 to 7 days before testing. And we generally are recommending about 5.
Right. Right. Well, and that's good to know. Again, I think we just need to be smart as we progress forward. If you have an event over the weekend where you're exposed to more people than you normally would be, if you're at home binge watching, The Crown on Netflix or something, not a sponsor, they should be. But, it's one of those things that if you start feeling symptoms and hey, I was around some people I don't know on, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, then you might want to start, self quarantine or just watch where you go. Make sure you've got a mask on. At that point, be in touch with your doctor. Just be smart about it, I guess.
Yeah, the one change I'd make to what you said, because it's mostly true, but if you are starting to feel symptoms, you absolutely should quarantine and not go out.
Okay, so if you get a sore throat, just shut it down. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, if you've been exposed and you have no symptoms, I think it's reasonable to do your very best with masking and hygiene and social distancing, and don't go anywhere that you don't need to. And, don't go somewhere like a restaurant where you sit there with a mask off for a while with recirculated air. Because if you have been exposed, you could be that, silent carrier, the pre-infection person or the asymptomatic person that carries it to someone else.
Right.
So to respect the life of others, you need to isolate as much as you can. Absolutely, if you have symptoms, and then, relatively the best you can if you've been exposed. I think I would dare say most everybody's been exposed to some degree now, because it's out and around a lot.
It seems like if you've been anywhere, you've at some point, I always assume with all the people I've been around for different things, even if people are being, practicing all the stuff they should, I figure I feel like at some point I had to have been exposed to some amount of it.
Yes, I think that's very likely. I think the key is you haven't had high enough viral load to get infected. And that's where we talk about being in a room with people like more than 15 minutes or closer than 6 feet. It's all about the viral load.
Right.
Hopefully most everybody can head off immune-wise, a small number of viral particles. The bigger risk is when you have a lot of viral particles and they kind of overwhelm the body and become an infection.
Right. Yep. And I think that's what you don't know. You could have a conversation with somebody that ends up having the the coronavirus. You hear a couple of days later, but maybe you only talked to them for about 2 minutes, and it wasn't like you weren't right in their face. So, but maybe if you'd been sitting next to them for an entire hour and had a meal sitting right next to them, it would be a different story.
That elevates the risk considerably.
Okay.
Right. 15 minutes closer than 6 feet, 15 minutes or more exposure closer than 6 feet, clearly associated with higher risk of infection.
Okay.
And
so move around.
You got to minimize those things as much as you can to help reduce the infection rate.
Okay.
All right. Well, Dr. Clothier, again,
excellent information as always.
Tons of questions answered. People appreciate you.
Thanks, Dr. Clothier. You're the best.
John Allen says thank you. Cindy Richmond says, way to go, Dr. C. So lots of Dr.
Very
C's
nice.
being tossed up there this morning.
Lots of thumbs ups for you.
Well, I'm glad. Again, I think we all just got to get real about the infection as much as we can. And, initially nobody thought we'd be talking about it a year later. When things shut down mid-March, nobody thought 10 months later we'd still be challenged with it. I didn't think there'd be a vaccine either, though, that quickly, and that's about 20 years of research plus. And I think that's great. I'd really encourage people, get the vaccine, don't get the virus.
Excellent.
Amen.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Have a blessed week, sir.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right.
Great information.
There we go.
And
COVID
and it's
talk.
so interesting because Dr. Clothier has just an unbelievable range of topics he's covered for us over the years. He's so well versed in so many things. But this is what everybody continues. We have questions from members of the crew, JP and I both, throughout the week. People are like, "Can you please ask Dr. Clothier about this?" And it always comes back to the coronavirus and now the vaccine. So just trying to get as much good information out there. And I like Dr. Clothier's approach because he's not emotional about this. He's data driven. He's fact based. Just telling everybody to be smart. Use your noggin when you're out there.
Did you say noggin?
Yeah, noggin.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Very
Use
cool.
your head. Noggin.
There you go.
Well, there
Noggin.
you go.
Well, I'll tell you what else is being used as the noggin. Pat Mahomes didn't show any ill effects from his concussion. And
he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was as sharp as a knife.
He is crazy
in
talented.
a gunfight.
There you go.
That's probably not very helpful.
He is crazy talented.
Well, he's got crazy talent around him. I mean,
yeah,
Casey's got
that's
to come from
just,
all different directions.
Michelle, you've got to
Michelle
be
plays
on
for him?
cloud
Oh.
9. Oh, she could. She's multi-talented. She must be on cloud 9. Just, the game started off, looked to me like it was going to maybe be kind of competitive, and then it was like, oh, wow.
No,
Casey
it was the Kansas City going to
has
sleep in the first
this.
quarter business.
Yeah, it was just, I was like, oh, maybe is this going to be a competitive, what? Is this going to be competitive? And then it was like, oh, yeah, no, there's KC. There's Kansas City. There,
No, it's the first quarter going to sleep. Now, I will tell you this. It looked at first like some wide receivers had been paid off and some return people had been paid off, which is what gave the Bills their early surge.
A little early, yeah.
A drop pass that could have turned into a 30-yard first down and probably would have led to a Pat Mahomes touchdown. Love being able to say probably, because speculation means you never will know.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, dropped pass caused them to have to punt. Again, defense holds, receiving team can't hold on to the football. We're inside the 5-yard line.
I mean, it got to the point where it was just, it was.
Yeah, I'm
it
texting
was,
Nathan.
It was such an uneven match at that point.
Yeah, I'm texting Nathan going, who got paid off? Who's on drugs?
Y'all are funny.
Somebody's on drugs. Nathan's like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, yeah, me neither.
Oh.
Of course, I have to eat a little bit of crow on the Green Bay game.
Wow.
Yeah, boy, there you go.
You can't
Tom Brady.
count
Timeless
Tom Brady, the robot. I think, did Gail say, was it Gail last week that said, is he a robot?
Mr. 3 interceptions, though, but they still pulled it off. Tampa Bay defense did their job. And now, however, the Green Bay defense did not. I was shaking my head, and I'm like, come on now. It's Tampa Bay. But
you know what? Tampa
Timeless
Bay
Tom.
was hungry, and Tom,
I'm gonna
I
call him
think,
Timeless Tom.
Timeless Tom, and he is. I really think, JP, I think he is the leader that motivates that team. And, so you may not have as much talent around him as you do in some of these other teams, but he brings out the best in these guys, and he did yesterday.
Well,
He is through and through.
all I know is New England is not in the Super Bowl.
No,
and Tampa Bay is.
And is this the 7th Super Bowl
10th.
win? He's going for his.
Well, he hasn't
if
won.
he wins, no, that's what I'm saying. If he wins, it will be his 7th win because he's got 6 Super
if he
Bowl
wins,
rings.
right.
But this is his 10th Super Bowl. I think he's the only player. Is he the only player, Coach Quigley, or somebody help me out,
No,
to
he
have
is.
been in
He
10
is.
Super Bowls?
That's correct.
I mean, it is what it is. The guy's crazy talented, future Hall of Famer, easy breezy. Just you got to give him respect. Got to give him respect.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's already in the Hall of Fame without having to be admitted into the Hall of Fame. But he's also one of 2 quarterbacks. Or one of 3 quarterback, well, one of 4 now because he'll be the 4th. That will have started in a Super Bowl with 2 or more
different
teams.
teams.
You've
Yep.
been listening to too much radio. So, anyways,
I listened to my sports this morning.
if you could name those 3 quarterbacks without Googling, be honest, then I'll send you a $25 Starbucks gift card.
Put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments.
Yep.
So
and rock and roll on that.
If you can name them, there are 3 other quarterbacks that started in Super Bowls for 2 different teams.
Yep.
So throw it in there and let us know.
Coach, we're counting on you.
And again, don't go to Google. Come on, sports people. Nathan, you're a sports guy. Let's get this done. So, yeah. So, anyways, point is I got to eat some crow. Aaron Rodgers does not get it done. And so the Pack will stay home. Green Bay did not get the home advantage with the cold weather. Again, surprising
I thought for
there.
sure. I was like, Green Bay had everything going for them. They had
remember,
everything
Tom,
on their
though,
side.
Good
but
old
then,
Tom, he's used to playing in the
Tom
cold.
was going to be the
I
spoiler
was hoping they were going
there.
to freeze the defensive legs, but it didn't work out.
It did not.
Didn't work out. So back to the Kansas City Chiefs. So I've got to eat my words. Pack lost, and it wasn't a blowout. Okay.
Yep.
Which I thought it would be, but like I said, timeless Tom and the defense kept Tampa Bay in the game. However, I do count the Kansas City Chiefs game as a blowout. That was 14 or more points. They really were kicking their butt.
I mean,
after the first quarter,
And you're talking about, and Mahomes is coming in after a
Fred,
concussion.
you got two, Fred. You're missing one. Craig Morton and
this
Peyton
is
Manning.
it was interesting. We my son had a
That's two.
great concert yesterday at Tups Brewery for School of Rock in McKinney, and they had the game on the big screen while we were there, and you were watching it in between sets. And there was a guy who had been sitting at a table next to us, and he's like, "Can y'all believe that game?" And he said, "This is the best marketing for the Super Bowl." And he's like, "I'm a sports fan." He said, "I wasn't super excited about the Super Bowl." He said, because we all were assuming at this point Kansas City was going to win. And he's like, "Man, you've got Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl." He said ratings just went through the roof. And I agree with that. I was like, you know what? You are spot on. I think advertising spots just got more expensive with these two.
Hopefully they get more fun, too. So let's go over and
I
run
hope there's
down.
some of those progressive, the ones where the people are turning into their parents.
You watch way too much TV.
I love those commercials.
You and my father had to catch me up on that.
I love those.
So let's run through some numbers real quick. Tom Brady was 20 of 36, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Doesn't sound like an NFC championship performance, but was enough to lead his team. On the ground, Fournette took care of business, 55 yards on 12 carries and a touchdown. That's what pushed them over the top. Of course, there's going to be a huge question mark that lingers over the coaching staff at Green Bay. In 4th down in the red zone, with over 2 minutes left to go in the game, do you really not go for the touchdown? Do you take the 3 points? That's going to be a big question. If it had been me at the coaching helm, I would have gone for the touchdown. I'd have gone for broke.
Well, when you're into big games, you've got to get as many points on the board, and you've got to take those opportunities. It's a gamble. It's a risk. But I always think you've got to go for where can I get more points, which is going to set us ahead.
Well, my theory is that your defense has been suspect the entire game at this point. Are they going to really be able to shut down, Timeless Tom? In that final march, I know, right? In that final march, and I got to put the ball in Aaron Rodgers' hands. I got to trust that my quarterback and my offense is going to get it done, and not rely on my defense and put that on there to get the ball back so that Aaron Rodgers can then drive down the field. Of course, everybody's going to play Monday morning quarterback on that. In the receiving core, Chris Godwin, 5 receptions, 110 yards, no touchdowns, but wow, moved the ball up and down the field so the chains never stop moving. Mike Evans, 3 receptions, 51 yards, a touchdown. Scott Miller, 2 receptions, 36 yards, a touchdown. And then Cameron, I think it's Brate, 3 catches, 19 yards, and a touchdown. Heading over to the Packers, and again, this is just Aaron Rodgers and crew could not get it done. He was 33 of 48. Now these sound like an NFC championship set of numbers. 33 for 48, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. On the ground, they just couldn't get it going. Aaron Jones was only 6 carries for 27 yards, no touchdowns on the ground either. In the receiving core, there's 2 that really stick out. Of course, Marquez Valdez Scanting stands out. 4 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown. And then Devontae Adams, 9 for 67 with a touchdown as well. But again, nothing on the ground game. And really that was the difference maker. Tampa Bay being able to punch it in on the ground is what carried them into the Super Bowl. So 31-26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Timeless Tom, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, on.
Yeah, wow. Well, and Fred said, and I didn't even realize this until he pointed this out. This is the first time in NFL history that a team is playing in the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So
That's correct.
I mean, who a year ago would you have ever? Anyway, it's crazy. I just a year ago we would never have been even thinking this would be a discussion. Of course, that was before the pandemic hit and before we saw Tom, leading the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But
Timeless Tom
could have never in a million years guessed it.
So,
Never.
And of course, Fred, to add to your bit of trivia there, it's interesting as they have been preparing the Tampa Bay stadium for the Super Bowl. They go on, and of course, they replaced the team logo with the Super Bowl logo. They left one up with old Tom Brady and Evans standing there. So,
They did?
They did. They've got a Tampa Bay insignia sign still up in the stadium where they will run in under. Yeah, oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they left one up.
Okay, Elizabeth said that Peyton is the only one to win with 2 teams. She said that's help from Brett.
Start.
Yeah, or start. Yeah.
Two that started in the Super Bowl.
She said that's help from Brett, but not Google.
Yeah, I didn't say when. I said started. Because you would be correct. Peyton Manning out of the group is the only one to win a Super Bowl with 2 teams.
Yes.
And so, but the question is, who are the 3 quarterbacks that have started for 2 different teams in Super Bowls? Tom Brady will now, of course, join their ranks.
I don't, and Michelle put on there, didn't realize, and I still don't think of him as even in his 40s. Tom's 43. Pat's 25.
Correct.
He is young as all get out. But Tom Brady's, he's 43. So he's got almost 20 years on Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's just.
And Elizabeth Merritt
Wow.
gets it. She gets it. I wasn't looking over there. You didn't give me the heads up, but her guess was, unless somebody guessed before her, Peyton Manning, Kurt Warner, and Craig Morton. So now, can you name the teams that they did it with?
Yep.
I can. Can you?
There you go.
But so Elizabeth, I think you win, but I got to go up and look to make sure that nobody else answered that question ahead of you. Charles Gura said John Elway, Peyton Manning, Craig Morton. Nope, it was in fact Kurt Warner, not Brett Favre. So it looks like you are the winner, Elizabeth. Congratulations.
Yep.
I will
Yay.
mail you out a $25 gift card. Private message me your address.
Good times. Good
And
times.
so there you go. All right, so let's go on back. The Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, I was right about this game, so I'm 50-50. To me, it was a blowout. The Buffalo Bills only showed promise at the front end of the game because of the turnovers and the lack of offensive execution by the Kansas City Chiefs, and so it got them in the game early. But really after that, it was pretty much a blowout. In the first quarter, the Buffalo Bills scored 9 points, left the Chiefs with a goose egg. However, in the second quarter, the Chiefs went up 21-3 at that point. In the second quarter, in the third quarter, 10-3. And then in the fourth quarter, the Buffalo Bills put 9 on the board, but the Chiefs put 7 more. Let's look at Josh Allen, young quarterback, 28 for 48, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And then on the ground, Josh Allen was the one getting it done as well. Devin Singletary, pretty much a non-factor in the game. Josh Allen carried the ball 7 times for 88 yards. Again, the Buffalo Bills just didn't have enough offensive power to be able to get it done. And so then heading over to the Chiefs side of the coin, Patrick Mahomes. Again, these are AFC championship numbers.
Yeah, he's
29
he's
for
spectacular.
38. Again, fantastic. Now, and really, at least one of those were a dropped pass that should have been caught. 325 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions on the ground. And again, both teams that won in their respective conference championships, their running backs produce a touchdown.
Yep.
Darrell Williams, 13 carries, 52 yards, a touchdown. And then Clyde Edwards, 6 carries, 7 yards, 1 touchdown as well. On the receiving end, huge game for Tyreek Hill. 9 catches, 172 yards. And then Travis Kelce right behind him, 13 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, again, just way too many weapons for the Kansas City Chiefs if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are to have a chance. And in the opening gun, they have not been given the favor to win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have been given the nod so far. It'll have to be timeless Tom.
This will be a fun game to watch. Like I said, viewership just went up when it became Tom and Pat in the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to see that. Like I said, I think the price for a commercial just got a little more expensive.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah,
so.
we were going to run a commercial until Tom Brady, his team won yesterday.
And Fred, you are
Now we
correct.
can't afford it.
Yeah, no, we can't afford it. Fred, you're correct, by the way. So, so it's going to be an interesting game. I can't wait to watch the commercials. I think I'm looking forward to the commercials more than I am anything else.
I always love the commercials during the Super Bowl is kind of, even if you don't dig the Super Bowl, you don't dig football, you go to a party or you watch it and that's another thing. Okay, so Super Bowl parties, and we'll talk about this closer to the Super Bowl. What is your Super Bowl going to look like? Do you usually go to a party? Will you? Because last year's Super Bowl, everybody still went to parties, had people over, did what they normally do, go to a bar, sports bar, whatever, because this was pre-pandemic. So
Yeah.
we're kind of getting to that edge where we're getting closer and closer to when the pandemic hit, and the Super Bowl was one of the last big things.
See, and I think for me, it'll be
Before
just I've
the
got my
pandemic.
bubble,
Yeah.
and I just kind of stay in my bubble.
Yep.
And I've got my bubble friends.
Yeah.
And so I don't really go outside of my bubble friends.
And you'll probably just hang out with them or
My bubble friends.
Yeah.
Pretty
Your bubble
much.
Friends, your bubble friends.
My bubble friends.
Well, hey,
I have pandemic bubble friends.
You do. I love that.
I do.
That sounds like a new cartoon on Saturday
So,
morning.
And before we go any further, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody that wished me a happy birthday. And I want to thank Chambrielle again for the wonderful balloons and the
Yes.
chocolates. That was very, very sweet. And then, so the biggest, one of the things I think as you get older, I've had several people ask me, what'd you get for your birthday? And I'm like, really, I didn't get a lot. I said, but I didn't ask for anything except for one thing. And they were like, well, what'd you ask for? I asked for my daughter to be here on my birthday.
Katerina.
And Courtney, 3 weeks ago, made plans, bought an airline ticket to fly my daughter in. And it was funny because I was super, super grumpy.
Imagine JP grumpy.
The night
Shock and
before,
awe.
I know, right? And so it's funny because the night before, she goes, well, I just want to let you know we got to go to the airport tomorrow to pick up my friend from Washington State.
Right. And you
I'm
had
like,
Saturday
really?
morning off. Usually
Right.
you and I produce Kilroy's Conversation together, but Charles Gura hopped in for us, and you had Saturday morning off. So you're like, okay, I'm going to, have breakfast or
Right.
some kind of
Yeah, breakfast early because she had this whole day planned. She
Yeah.
said, I got the whole day planned.
Yeah.
And so I wake up, I'm like, can we go to Max's and get a donut for my birthday? And she goes, no, we don't have time. And I'm
And you're like,
really?
You're like, wah,
Yeah,
wah.
I was too. So, we've got to go take care of this. We got to go take care of that. And I'm like, but those are all your errands. Why are we running? This is
Why
my
am I
birthday.
running errands on my birthday?
Right. So I get my sister on the phone, and I'm like, you don't understand. I'm having to run this errand and that errand, and then I got to go pick up her friend from the airport, and I'm just, I'm just gripey. And so I didn't even get to eat. My sister's like, just drive through somewhere. Her friend's you're already late to pick her friend up. Just go drive through and get something to eat because you're hangry.
Yeah, you're very angry.
This is like 11:30.
You're
you know.
croupy gripey.
I was. And so we get to Love Field, and we get past the ticketing counters, and Courtney goes, wait. And so I slam on the brakes. I'm like, what? Who's coming? Well, nobody. But I was talking to my sister. I didn't know she was saying, don't hang up with your sister, right?
She knew what moment was about to happen, and she wanted your
Right.
sister to experience it, which I think
Right.
is very sweet.
So then we go through past the second door for
pickup,
no,
yeah.
for pickup, right? And I knew her friend was at door 3. So she goes, wait. And so I'm like, Dallas PD is going to take me to jail. They're going to think I've been drinking. So I'm frustrated. So I pull past door number 3 and park. And she goes, well, didn't you see her when you drove by? And I'm like, yeah, your friend is standing right over there. Because all I did was just pay attention to the blur, right?
Right.
Well, I turn around and look back, and it's Katerina.
And all of a sudden you're like, it
Oh.
registers. This is for me.
I just started bawling.
Yeah.
I mean, it was tears everywhere. My sister's like, are you okay? I'm like, it's Katerina. And so the best birthday that I think I've ever had. It's one of the top 3.
See, that's
Being
so
born is
great.
number 1.
Well, that's always a good birthday.
yeah.
The original birthday is always
is the
real
best.
good.
That's the best
real
one.
good.
So had a great time. And then we had friends and dinner at a
Yeah.
Brazilian steakhouse and
Lots of meat.
lots of meat.
Michael is still in a meat coma.
Lots of
Trying
meat.
to digest 9 pounds of meat.
Oh, man. But it was so much
It
fun.
was delicious, but just
So-
what a nice. I mean, and getting to see Katerina, I just can't even imagine what a great surprise. Because have you seen her since her wedding?
No,
Yeah, so she hasn't been back to
Not in
Texas since she
person.
got since I mean I know y'all FaceTime and y'all chit chat
Right.
all the time and still video game it up, but she hasn't been back to Texas since she got married.
That's
So
right.
it's just it was just so crazy to see this mature married lady talking about work and what her manager can be doing and what she it was just it was great to see her. So that's
it was
good
a lot of
stuff.
fun. I just want to thank everybody for being a part of that and coming
You got
out
lots of
and-
fun birthday wishes and
I
everything.
did.
So that's
It
good.
was
That's
nice.
good.
It was
Well,
nice.
everybody should be appreciated on their birthday. And especially at a time, you're hearing 400,000 dead, 25 million infected.
Right.
Even wherever you stand on this pandemic and what your thoughts are, there are people who have died. And so I think it kind of makes you appreciate that birthday all the more. You know, hey, God allowed me to put my feet on the ground and stand upright another year. What a blessing. You know, all of a sudden age and all that goes away, which we will not refer to JP, by the way. I've already committed to this. We will not refer to him as almost 50. He is 49 years young, so he is still just only 49.
For now.
For a year. Well, for 362 days, 63 days.
Yeah.
Well, and then we've got to talk about, we lost three greats.
Boy, no kidding.
Since Friday. Hank Aaron.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Just a crazy, talented.
Incredible era there.
Yeah, fantastic American. Yeah. We lost Larry King.
Yeah.
Long time
another
icon.
icon.
Icon. And then we also lost James White, who I was a huge fan of him and the Broken Spoke. Saw many concerts out there in my day. Really glad that I got to go with my husband. The night before we went to see Willie Nelson on July 4th, 5 years ago, we went to the Broken Spoke to see a couple of bands out there and dance and hang out and have a good time. And we got to sit and visit with James at length. And, this is a man who I met back in my college days, and what a great Texan, what a great American, and he just passed yesterday at the age of 81. A huge loss to the Texas world of music.
Absolutely.
Really is. So,
absolutely.
Broken Spoke will never be the same again.
And there's my three.
Yeah, and that's the trifecta. And I sent you that. I said,
I saw that.
There's the trifecta, because all about the same age, all very iconic in their own right. So, hope they all rest in peace, and just ask you to lift their families up in prayers, because family and fans are hurting right now over those three losses.
Well, and again, thank goodness the trifecta's over, so we don't have to watch and wait.
Worry about who it is next. Yeah,
buddy.
We always do that on this show. We speculate. We obsess over that a little bit too much.
We really do. Wee bit too much.
Wee bit too much.
As we get ready to head out, remember we are going short on Mondays.
Yes.
7:30 to 8:30. And so, but as we get ready to go
everybody
out,
else like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Fabi, as I call them.
Who?
Fabi.
Who's
Fabi.
Fabi?
Yeah, Fabi.
Who's that?
FBI.
Oh,
Fabi.
the FBI.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's up on this?
Yeah, it can't be
Help
JP,
me out
Kathy,
on
and the
this.
crew without a little bit of
Political
Fabi kicking.
shebanger. Yeah.
I got a Fabi kick. So here's what's interesting, right? The Justice Department and the FBI are debating on whether or not they want to charge some of the Capitol rioters. This just blows my mind. And the biggest concern, here's their concern. So I guess if you want to commit a crime, send out a big email to your email group and get 500 or more, and that way nobody will want to prosecute you, because that's what it's coming down to. Part of it anyways. Well,
yeah,
there's
I
800
just don't get
people,
this.
and our court system will get bogged down, and we don't have jail space for them all.
So basically you're telling people from another country that, hey, it's a free-for-all at the Capitol.
Pretty much. Again, as long as you commit
Bring
a crime.
zip ties. It's all good.
Right. As long as you commit a crime of 500 or more people, then they're just going to leave you alone.
Well, that's what. Remember in Dallas, there was that big BLM rally that just went really bad, and Antifa was involved, and they had all these people, zip tied, getting ready to. The police chief, who is no longer the police chief in Dallas, and I don't blame her, was getting ready, to prosecute these people and take them to jail. And county judge came in and said, no, just let everybody go. Just take them back. Give them a ride back to their cars.
Right. Free Uber service, police Ubering. But so it's interesting that we are going to decide whether or not we prosecute a crime based on the availability, and I don't even know if you can call it availability. I guess the speediness of a possible trial or not trial. Number one.
When did we ever worry? If there's a crime, go through the appropriate steps to bring it to justice or to dismiss it.
Here's the other thing. Disperse it amongst the federal courts.
There you go.
Let people be prosecuted in their home areas. I mean, goodness gracious.
And that's what I don't get.
Yeah, I mean,
take it to the federal court. If you're in Texas, okay, got federal court building just right down the street from us here at Venture X. So I don't know.
So here we go. So then the question becomes, if these people don't get charged, then does the president really commit?
Then how does he have an impeachable offense If everybody else is getting a hall pass.
Right. And again,
yeah.
one of these, not today, but on another day, I am going to download his speech, and I'm going to read his speech.
Which you and I have both read verbatim to see, did he
There's
say
no insurrection.
There's not.
There's not.
There's just not. And I think this was going to happen if he was there or if he was not. I think if it was just somebody who was the head of whatever group was out there and this person or that person, I don't think it mattered to the people who were there
Right.
to wreak havoc.
Right.
And you know, and you know, well, everybody's got a different story. And so that's another thing. So then does this mean that, are they finding out that maybe these are some people from liberal groups? Maybe are these some Antifa folks and this, that, and the other?
Who
But,
knows?
but again, a trial would have brought out the truth. So now we're in a situation where the liberal media can continue to say it was Trump rioters. Oh, those President Trump people. How dare they?
I agree.
Now they get to keep that going forever and ever, because I kept saying, you know what? I'm going to wait and look at all the facts when these things go to trial. Then we'll know who's who was with what group, who worked together, to attack the Capitol that day, who had malicious intent, who was just an innocent bystander who got carried away, whatever the case may be. Now we won't know if these don't go to trial. Hence, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world can push the same agenda for the next 4 years.
Well, and it's all politically driven. We know that.
It is.
The idea is
It
to
is.
shut down President Trump completely.
Yep.
But one step further beyond that, how do you prosecute a president now in the Senate? Number 2. Number 3, what about the riots that are continuing in the Northwest, in Portland,
well,
and
in was
Bremerton
it Minnesota last night? And I haven't
I don't
seen
know.
all the details. 6 people, I think, were shot. So I don't know if anybody has that full story. Please put it in one of our social media
Minnesota,
feeds.
I don't know.
I just heard a brief bit on that this morning. So,
But here's my big question: what do we prosecute now? Antifa, who have continued this rioting in the Northwest, and since we blamed Donald Trump for that when he was in office, do we now blame Joe Biden?
well, and
them to
everybody said
continue to riot?
all of the violence will stop when Joe Biden becomes president. It has not.
No, Antifa's not going to stop either.
It has not. Yes, you're right. So we blamed President Donald Trump for 4 years with everything that went down, the good, bad, none of the good, even the good stuff he never got credit for, all the bad and the ugly. So are they going to say this is because Biden's in office, or this is because he's an establishment person, or what are they going to say?
Yeah, well, good question. I mean, it's got to be his problem now, his fault. So there you go. All right, and also we want to wish
Craziness.
our local golfer, Mia, good luck today in her first golf tournament for Caddo
that's
Mills.
exciting.
Go,
good
Mia.
For her.
So everybody in the crew, give a big old shout out and hello to
good for
Michelle,
her.
and wish Mia good luck today
good
as she
for her.
goes out there with
That's
the sticks.
awesome.
And hopefully she doesn't attract lightning.
Oh, I mean, I'm getting a correction. They think Indianapolis was where the shooting was. So we'll find out.
Okay.
We'll be able to
I don't know
report
about
more
that.
on Wednesday. It looks like also this week we will have Texas State Senator Angela Paxton will be kicking off her portion of our show called the Senate Minute, and she will be giving live updates from Austin, Texas, and let you know what is going on this legislative session, because it's only 6 short months. So if you want to
There
let
you
your
go.
voice be heard, she'll tell you where and when.
She will. Everybody have a blessed day. We'll see you on
Love y'all.
Wednesday.